Welcome to another day in the Matrix. This is Red Pill Podcast 254, and we are so close to eclipse season, just a little over a week away from the annular solar eclipse on the Chinese Lunar New Year. And we can see the effects of this not only for crypto, but for precious metals as well. We just experienced yet another epic week in the market. We even have the Dow Jones closing off the week at all-time highs, breaking into 50,000 points for the first time ever. So this entire market across the board is absolutely wild right now. As you can imagine, we have a lot to cover here in today's Red Pill, so let's get into it. But before we get started, as always, make sure to get relaxed, get comfortable, grab yourself a fresh cup of coffee or tea if it's a little earlier in the day, or maybe a beer or a glass of wine or any beverage of your choice if it's getting a little later out there in the Matrix, especially those of you that are out there hanging out with friends and family watching the Super Bowl this fine Sunday. I actually will be touching on that a little bit later in today's Red Pill because I've gotten so much interest from you guys with my take on that. So don't worry, we will be covering that in a little bit. And if you are interested in a specific altcoin and you'd like me to review the chart of that altcoin, then please go ahead and submit a comment here in the Patreon comments section below this post. Please make sure to vote this week. You guys did amazing last week. We had a really solid lineup of projects that we will be covering today, and that's what we do every week. So just make sure to go ahead below this post here on Patreon and comment the name of the altcoin and include the ticker symbol next to it as well. All right. As mentioned in my most recent market update on February 5th, we had the crash lows coming in on the 36th day of this year, and that was exactly 3 weeks and 6 days before the upcoming total lunar eclipse on March 3rd. The 3-3 date. We've actually been talking a lot about the 33 code, and here we have this 36 code coming up, and I did cover it in depth in that new market update, so please make sure to check that out if you haven't already. But essentially what's so fascinating about this ties back into gematria with Bitcoin equaling 36 in the English full reduction cipher. It's one of our key gematria ciphers that we use here. And this could actually very well be one of the most significant dates of this year, specifically for crypto investors, since we're now seeing extremes that we pretty much only see during Bitcoin's bear market cycle lows. And what I've been focusing on during pretty much the past 11 Red Pill podcasts every single week since the November 23rd Red Pill. A lot of you guys remember that because on November 21st, we had a major market correction here in crypto, and that marked a local bottom at the time. A couple days later, on Sunday, typical day I do a Red Pill, on November 23rd, is when I started covering how I was expecting the year ahead to start, and ultimately the significance of the upcoming eclipse season, which we're now about to enter. As I said, it's about 8 days ahead from today. Whenever you watch this, of course, it'll get closer to that, but let's just call it a week. So we are in the thick of it right now. And if you remember pretty much the last 7 to 8 Red Pill podcasts, we've been focusing a lot on this, identifying the bottom for Bitcoin. And that's pretty much been our focus going back to November 21st, since we saw this major correction into like the 85K territory. Now, this would be the focus of Bitcoin's bottoming structure, which I've anticipated to be around the final total lunar eclipse of our lunar cycle, which would be on March 3rd. That again, less than a month away. And here we are. Bitcoin has dropped essentially lower than we've seen since going back to around like the October solar eclipse, pretty much backtesting the exact same price as that final solar eclipse of our solar cycle. This is something that I teach regarding the yearly layout of each eclipse in its respective cycle. So we had back in October of 2024, the final solar eclipse of our solar cycle, and it's always after that one that we see Bitcoin push up higher into price discovery. We saw that back here in 2020. Right after that eclipse, Bitcoin went parabolic and then it topped out. And then we also had that in the prior solar cycle. We have the final total solar eclipse, then Bitcoin tops out. And then we had the same thing in this cycle as well, final total solar eclipse, and Bitcoin tops out. And then there's a relationship with Bitcoin and the final lunar eclipse of a lunar cycle, and it bottoms out, and it bottoms out, and it bottoms out, and here we are. So the whole concept and focus here in our red pills for pretty much the last 2 months to 3 months has been identifying Bitcoin's bottoming structure. And now, as we've been doing this, it's been quite dramatic here because we have like what's happening with the stock market and with precious metals. So this environment that we're in is like pretty much a once in a lifetime setup. I don't think we've ever seen anything like this. I mean, we definitely haven't with regards to silver, because the last time it went parabolic into price discovery was back in 1979. So we're talking like 46 years ago, or whatever the maths is. It's a long time. So the last time we saw this type of move in silver was almost a half century ago. And that right there, with what we're seeing with crypto and what we're seeing with the dollar, what we're seeing with all of the fiat money around the world, it's tied back to the Federal Reserve System and the impeding Aquarian economy, which I believe is what we're moving into. We also have the stock market, as I mentioned in the intro. This is a setup that like we've just never seen. So in a way, it's actually quite exciting to live through this. You know, it feels kind of unique in that way, where I get it. It's very emotional right now. A lot of people are getting caught up in that, but I think it's very important to step out of the emotions right now, regardless of the active price action we're seeing, and just kind of see it for what it is. You know, I mean, they just gave precious metals investors one of the greatest de-risking opportunities of a lifetime. And how could you not be excited about that? The same thing occurred with Bitcoin pretty much all throughout 2025. And then we've even seen kind of this restructuring in what the altcoins will be moving forward, with a lot of projects actually dipping below the C19 crash lows from March of 2020. And then several of them have held structure, have held supports, and they're actually not looking so bad in the grand scheme of things. We're experiencing a restructure, and all the while we've had the institutions step in, and we've had a lot of leverage be reset. And I know we talked about that a little bit in last week's Red Pill and how many liquidations they were to the downside. The fact that they just kept sliding through all of that and it retested a key level from the 2024 year, that to me feels insanely orchestrated. And we're going to talk a lot more about that as we progress through today's podcast. But this is the type of oversold environment we pretty much only get at the cycle lows for Bitcoin. And I think what we're going to cover today is going to be very exciting for those that are interested in investing in crypto. I get that right now, most people are actually not excited about investing in crypto. I can't blame them, but that's usually the wrong energy, and that's the wrong way to look at markets. When everyone is scared and and even you on a personal level don't feel like being a part of something, it's probably because it's so discounted that it's like the best opportunities you can get. And I know it sounds weird to hear, but that's always how we look back at these things a year from now. That's how we will look back. That's how we all looked back at 15K Bitcoin. I remember when Bitcoin was doing this whole move down. By the time we got over here, I mean, I remember this event, the Silicon Valley Bank collapse, and everyone thought, oh, this is over. You know, we're just going to go to whatever, 9K, 7K, whatever, some CME gap down here that people are still fucking talking about. And Bitcoin said no. Why? Because this was the final total lunar eclipse of a lunar cycle. And what runs this market isn't news. It's not Michael Saylor. It's not Epstein. It's not Trump. It's none of that stuff. It is gematria, numerology, and astrology. And when you line up everything and you have a holistic system and you start combining the elements of technical analysis, you can now have a much more solid foundation. And I bring this up because a lot of people have been waiting and waiting and waiting to take action on certain things. And you need to develop your own investment thesis. This has been part of the whole thing here at Waters Above since the very beginning. And a lot of the time, I actually take moments and pause and I think to myself, I should probably not share whatever I'm buying or selling anymore in the future, because it's almost like impeding people from becoming self-reliant investors. And that bothers me because the whole purpose of the mastermind community was for that, for everyone here to become a self-reliant investor. Just as I don't do your laundry for you, or I don't do your grocery shopping for you, or I don't tutor your kids, or I don't set your alarm clock to wake up in the morning. It's the same thing with investing. You must take personal responsibility and accountability and make your own moves, because we're all in a different situation here. And that's the end of it. So I'm not saying that to be hard on anyone or like shoot anyone down or anything like that. And I will likely continue to share the moves that I make in this market, but it's almost like people forget that I have a lot of different things going on in my life. I've started multiple businesses and I'm launching a new platform, which I've invested so much of my personal capital into. That to me is so much more fun and a passion project instead of these fucking cryptocurrencies. Like, I'm just going to be real with everyone. Like, you need to invest in yourself before you invest all of your life savings into crypto and precious metals and gambling on Poly Market or this Super Bowl that's happening today. You know how much you can change your life when you start restructuring your investment thesis? And that's always been my investment thesis. It was never go all in on crypto. Definitely not. So hopefully people enjoy that stream of consciousness there, because it's something I say maybe once every year. And again, there's maybe 50 podcasts in between when I really go deep into a stream of consciousness on this kind of stuff. But it just feels like we're back in one of those moments. Whereas if people didn't take the last time I said that seriously, or the last time I said that seriously, or the last time I said that seriously, and it's like, I just have to say it again. Invest in yourself. Build an investment thesis that prioritizes your vision, that prioritizes what you're aiming to do with the rest of your life. Not waiting for crypto or precious metals or whatever the fuck for the day that never comes, and then you'll have the money to then do the thing you want to do. I can guarantee you every successful person on this planet did not invest money in some speculative stuff to then hope that they will get some ROI crazy gains to then do the thing they're dreaming of doing. They live their dreams even when they have nothing. They create their dreams even when they don't have $1,000 to make it happen. I started Waters Above with a 2014 refurbished MacBook Pro. It was like $470 and it didn't even have a microphone. I had the built-in microphone. I started everything with that setup. And a free Canva account. And what got me going was the time invested in these charts, the knowledge, the wisdom, and practicing at my craft every single day. Make your vision come to life. Stop waiting to eventually bring it to life. So let's keep going. We have a lot going on right now over the past week with regards to how oversold this market is. We have single-digit reads in the extreme fear on the fear and greed index. These are some of the lowest fear and greed index readings since the creation of this. Now, of course, this is not the only thing you would isolate and say, yep, I should only rely on this to determine things. But we rarely see such a thing. a 6 read, a 7 read, and on a lot of these other fear and greed index indicators, this isn't the only one. This is the most popular one, I'd assume. But we see levels that those indicators have never seen before. And to top it all off, we're seeing macro RSI reads that we only see in the cycle lows for Bitcoin. Just look at the weekly, for example. So the last time we saw an RSI this low, 29, we're dipping into oversold on the weekly chart. The last time we saw that was back in the bear market around the bottoming structure. Yes, we did go lower. Of course, you started to build a little bit of what we call a bullish divergence, but who cares? Bitcoin just went to 60K. So that little bit lower right here would be like waiting for 53K. And in the grand scheme of things, this whole move right here didn't make every single altcoin go any lower. As I mentioned in the last update post, over here at this dip, XRP bottomed, Ethereum bottomed, Dogecoin bottomed, Aave bottomed, Chainlink bottomed, many projects bottomed. Not all of them went significantly lower with Bitcoin because Bitcoin didn't even go significantly lower. 12%. Guys, we had a 12% daily close the other day. So we can, of course, roll over. I think that's actually an important thing to bring up right now. We could, of course, see Bitcoin do one of those things that looks like this, where we have like this very confusing buyback, get sunken down again, start building a lot of support around 70K, for example. So just take this note because I want to get it out of the way. I'm seasoned enough in these charts to assume this could be our setup, and I don't want to go too deep into it right now because I will be going over Bitcoin's chart a little bit later in today's podcast, as I always do. But now that it's on my mind and I've already said it, and now that we've made it into this similar territory, we could have Bitcoin come back up to like 83, 86 maybe, if they really want to liquidate a lot of people that have been building these shorts below the 70K region. Then after that, similar to here, get a hardcore rejection candle. And in that way, sink down maybe into, let's call it May or April, who cares? And then after that, build more structure on top of that 60 to 70K zone, what we are just like buying back from, which by the way, this is an insane absorption candle. This is pretty epic, the amount of Bitcoin that has been accumulated in this process, which a lot of it is smart money, by the way. So then we are now anticipating kind of this 83, 86, come back to 65, maybe 70, build structure, and then one last washout, kind of like here. And what's interesting about this washout here is that it happened on the total lunar eclipse of, well, that was the FTX crash. So we're about to have that total lunar eclipse. And in my opinion, and it's not because I want, like my desire matters here, but perhaps some of you will agree with me. Can we just rip the Band-Aid off already? Like just, I don't even care if on March 3rd, Bitcoin crashes to 47K. Who fucking cares, okay? None of that really matters. I would just want the timing of it to be kind of out of the way. You feel me? So that's kind of my energy. Like Chief Wolf's energy is like, fuck it, just sink this ship real fast and let's keep it moving. Kind of like this cycle over here, where we started to break, like, look at how long this structure was built. It was technically wicked down on February 5th, which I'll get to that a little bit later because that's super significant. We just had a crash on February 5th, but then we held that for almost a full year. And after that full year, we got to a point where it was like, and then we just have like, let's call it 28 days of hell, but we ripped the Band-Aid off. And we made it to where? Look at the RSI, guys. This is 28 RSI. Where are we now? We were just at 28 RSI 2 days ago. That's your 2018 bottom. This is your 2022 bottom. We are there. So is it this our rip our Band-Aid off moment? And of course, we're talking about the eclipse being like 3 weeks out. It's close enough. So I would rather it be like this personally and like this personally, but I do have to keep in mind that we have another eclipse technically in August, and it's not a total lunar eclipse, but it is a lunar eclipse, and it's almost full. Like it's almost full. And that's where I'm like, I think it could take time. But in the grand scheme of things, this was not so rough. This was not so rough. I mean, this was awesome. And Bitcoin's been trading really awesome since that bottom. Even the Silicon Valley bank collapse, we were back up the next week and we had a 26% green week the following week. Built structure, back tested the prior local highs twice, and then lifted off. And where did we lift off? On a total solar eclipse in a solar cycle. So I'm feeling we should be through the worst of it. In my opinion, I think we are through the worst of it. But I know the way this market maker is, and they love to do weird stuff around eclipse season. And we, of course, still have the total lunar eclipse. So we've just looked into the RSI. Let me quickly show you something now that it's on my mind. I don't talk about this often, but we have the Bitcoin volatility index. Let me show you. It's my horse noise for 2026, by the way. Somebody in our community helped me figure that out. One second, I'm going to take a quick sip of coffee. Alrighty. So I think you guys will appreciate this. We have the Bitcoin volatility index, and on Thursday, February 5th, and I'm going to call that Crypto Black Thursday, we have this BVIV hitting 97. The last time we saw this was during the unwind of the Japan yen carry trade back on August 5th, 2024. Very interesting how it happened on the 5th. I'm looking at the 3-day, by the way. Let me look to the daily. So we have February 5th, we have August 5th, and then, of course, the other event prior to that was the FTX crash on November 9th, 2022. You guys probably remember that. Funny enough, that event marked the exact bottom for Bitcoin in 2022. And that was peak FUD. Like everyone thought it was the end of the world back then in crypto. And it was the best fucking buying opportunity across the board. I mean, even though we had in June, a little bit earlier, we did have ETH bottom, we did have Doge bottom, we did have several others. I named them a bit ago. Even though they bottomed in November, this bottom, they essentially all kind of double bottomed. So it was another buying opportunity, whatever, 4 or 5 months later. So who cares? At the end of the day, when you see this spike up to 97, like you can't see it here. This was a single day. It spikes to 97. You know that we're extreme. You know. That volatility is unbelievable. And the buy volume that came in the following day on Bitcoin was a big confirmation. Now, I know in my recent update post, I made a little note about the volume, how it was a little awkward. But then the following day, I saw what I wanted to see. So that was good. And of course, I'm just going to fill you in on all of my thoughts here in the full red pill. But the buy volume that came in was pretty solid, and I see a lot of solid buy volume across the board. Although many speculative alts look a little awkward right now, and that's no different than the last time we had this Japan yen carry trade unwind or the FTX crash. It kind of hits the market, and we get knocked down, and then when we get up, we're like seeing, what are they? Seeing stars, and it takes a couple weeks, if not months, to stabilize, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, you kind of want that. You want structure. For example, Bitcoin had no structure built above 69K, which was the prior all-time high. It really didn't have much structure built above 70K all the way to about 86. So ideally, what we would want is all of that trading range to be filled out. That would be best for not only Bitcoin, but the entire cryptocurrency asset class. And right now you can see we're trading back at a critical support level. I mean, it's a support level that goes back to like the first blow off top of the 2013 cycle. And you can see how important it's been in the bottom of the 2019, the C19 crash, the bottom of the 2022 cycle, and now today. So when you have all of that aligning on top of these extremes, this very much feels to me like we're in bottoming structure. But as I mentioned, it's like getting knocked out. You get up, you see stars, and it could take a couple months. 66 days, 56 days. It could take a couple months. Is that the end of the world? No, because you wouldn't want only one day to buy. Of course, you would want a dollar cost average. You want a little bit of time to get through this. And we knew about eclipse season, and eclipse season isn't just one day. It's a time frame that goes in both directions. Hence why I created this chart for you guys, the 5 to 6 weeks before to 2 to 3 weeks after. And look at this is 6 weeks before. Look at what's happened once we've entered this box. So I didn't just pull this stuff out of nowhere. It's not to be right. At the end of the day, like I don't care about being right. It's irrelevant. I have a much bigger vision ahead, and I'm not going to be leaving a legacy of being right and wrong. Nor do I give a fuck about a legacy. I just want to find out what really runs these markets and the cycles that we've experienced here as a community, and all of this code that has compiled into what we're experiencing makes this undeniable. And that's really cool. And then hopefully I won't even matter anymore. It will be the people that were influenced by what's happening here, and they're going to become better traders than me, better analysts than me, better decoders than me. That's what I want. I want people to be the best they can possibly be, and eventually create their own thing that inspires them. And we're all here influencing each other. At least that's what I believe in. So I do understand there's a lot of competition in some people. People love to compete, but that's just not my vibe. And I'm not here to be the one. I'm not here to be the guy who invented anything. I don't think I invented shit. There's probably a million people out there doing exactly what I'm doing somewhere in the multiverse, and you just don't know who they are. I think we're moving into a world that will need to operate in that energy that I'm showcasing right now because of what's happening with AI and what's happening with like a lot of people that operate in the attention economy. They're going to experience a downfall. No offense to anybody out there that's utilizing that tactic, but if you need to be relevant all the time through the attention economy, life's going to be tough for you in the future. This world that we're moving into won't allow that to be a valuable currency. So you must be honorable. You must operate with a really honorable value system, and you need to expand, never contract, inspire, don't discourage, right? I'm going to keep talking like this, guys, because I feel like it's so important with where we're at right now. And when we're seeing markets doing what they're doing right now, this is where a lot of people get off track. It's where a lot of people start to veer away from their grand mission. They get discouraged. And like, these are the times where you actually need to tap into being encouraged, like be excited, be stoked, because it's what the market maker wants you to feel is what's happening with prices. They want you to be emotionally tethered to this thing so that you never go for your dreams, right? And I'm not going to go back there again. I'm just saying, like, I feel like it's so important for our community to talk more about in general. Encourage each other in these times. Just like if you did that back here, or you did that back here, I mean, imagine being a community during the C19 crash, and while everyone's fucking worried about what Anthony Fauci is telling you, you're actually just like enjoying the moment together, like understanding that this is where generational wealth is built. I mean, of course, we did go into some global lockdown nonsense, but the point is that the preparation for all of that would have also been something. Part of me wishes like I knew about all of this kind of like crypto education stuff back then, because it would have been so cool to have created the channel here. But whatever, man, like everything is perfect in the timing, and I'm very much a believer of that. Like everything is perfect and everything is on time. You have to allow it to be on time. And you allow it through what we talked about a little bit earlier. So even the creation of my channel and when it happened and all of the stuff with the moon cycles and these eclipse cycles and all of that, like it's all just showing how amazing this reality is. And it needed to happen the way that it happened. That's what I believe. But let's keep it moving. We talked about the FTX crash in this bottom over here, the unwind of the Japan yen carry trade, and how actually Bitcoin pushed to price discovery after that move. So there's your Japan yen carry trade right here. That was the bottom, the yearly low. This was the cycle bottom. This was your yearly low. And then after that, Bitcoin pushed into price discovery and hit 100K for the first time. And with that flash crash over here on August 5th, we hit a low of 49K. And we've yet to see Bitcoin trade that low since that date, at least so far. You know, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. Of course, we could see Bitcoin hit 49K this year, you know, if they really, really wanted to bring the pain. Question is, how long does it last down there, right? That's not a prediction. That's not me calling for that, but it is possible. Anything is possible in the matrix. Is it probable? Maybe. But this is incredibly compelling with what we looked at with the Bitcoin volatility index and how we had this major spike up to 97, and the 3 times that we've made it up here marked extreme lows. And I do believe what we're seeing right now with the Bitcoin price and many top altcoins is that we are, quote, cheap right now. Many of them I'd even say are very cheap. I don't think that it's easy right now to determine which are the category winners, because a lot of people, maybe even in our community here, might associate the concept of a category winner with price action. For example, and this isn't me talking to any particular person or community out there, that's not my point, but like we just saw a major move with like Zcash, right? So people can say that, oh, that's a category winner because it had a recent crazy move to the upside. But guys, it's retesting the high of what Bitcoin was at in 2017. So it's like a category winner for 2 months. I just don't understand. So if I was to say category winner, some people might take that as me talking about some random coin that's gone up a lot. And that's not what I mean. Having a coin lose whatever 99% of its value and then catch up to prior all-time highs is what many cryptos do. So it's not that special. Now, when it starts to become this cultural moment at a time and then everyone starts piling up on it because it's positive price action, we should all understand why that's happening. It's not because it's a category winner. It's not necessarily because it's like future proof. Do you know how little liquidity it takes to do that to any project here in crypto? Just think about how silver and gold, a couple of, 2 weeks ago, they wiped out $10 trillion in market cap. That's over 3 times the market cap of the entire cryptocurrency asset class. If you were to throw $1 billion into many of these altcoins, they can go up 1,000%. So it's not so special, and I kind of want to lay that groundwork here because we are in like accumulation territory, in my opinion. So I just want to get that out of the way. Like, just because something goes up a lot doesn't mean it's a category winner. It means that it's an oversold shitcoin and it has a lot of opportunity to go up because it's extremely oversold. It doesn't mean that it's gonna break into price discovery and keep going and going and going and be utilized by some big corporation or be any technology that'll be useful in the Aquarian economy, or that it'll be utilized by governments, or that it'll be utilized by banks, or that it'll be something that'll definitely be regulated and not under the scrutiny of the SEC, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I could talk circles around that forever. This is what I do. So when I'm talking category winner, I'm not necessarily just saying price go up equals it's doing good, like in the future. And forever will be doing good. I hope that makes sense. I'm trying to not get complicated here. But to be simple, what I would consider as a category winner would be XRP. Bitcoin, I already know is. And the fact that they need to throw in this Epstein narrative and all of that to bring Bitcoin down to the price where it essentially would have fell to anyways, just for the structural and technical purpose, it's kind of hilarious how they do this, because they did the same shit over here. They did the same shit over here. They're always doing something. They get very loud with their narratives. And I'm not defending Bitcoin, by the way. I don't need to care about if Bitcoin goes to zero or not, because it returns back to what we talked about a little bit earlier. I want to invest in my vision to bring my people together in a new way, in my understanding of where the future is heading, to make a better life for not only myself, but the people who are resonating with what we're doing here in our community, and the future people that will find our community and see the cracks and see the cracks in the system and see the buckling of the columns of the system. They will start to want to make investments in each other instead of investments in this crypto market. That's the thing that I'm building. I'm building something where I want our people to invest in each other, and someone has to go out of their way to create that. And that's my risk. That's my big commitment to the future. And I'm willing to take that risk because I feel like it's the best risk I could ever take. Otherwise, what the fuck is the point of me doing this? So I don't believe that there's the future of just continuing to track bull and bear markets. There has to be something more. And of course, I will continue to track those things because they are fascinating to me and I'm excited about them. But a lot of people force themselves to be excited about this stuff, and it's not even their passion. And that's where the problem lies. I hope that makes sense. Like, I love decoding. I love this. I mean, I'm really interested in it. But I don't want to talk about meme coins. I don't want to find the next, 10x on the Solana blockchain. Like, it's not my thing. I don't want to find like a poly market bot that it's gonna I'm not into that stuff. Some people are, just like some people are really into sports. I'm not. If you're not into sports, you should probably not do sports betting, for example. If you're not into learning how to technically trade, then you probably shouldn't be leverage trading. You can't just get into stuff because it quote unquote makes you money, because then it's going to lose you a lot more money than you could imagine gaining. And the people who do make a lot of money in this stuff are people who are passionate about it, people that understand it, people that are a part of it. They live, breathe, eat, and sleep this stuff. And that's kind of what I want to remind a lot of people of as we progress, is like, you need to find things in this whole thing called reality that are exciting to you, and you must embrace those. And a lot of us came to crypto because we wanted to make money, right? And I feel that's what makes it so hard for people to navigate this whole thing, for sure. And you could tell it in the way the cycles go. It's why a lot of people don't ever buy stuff that actually has proven it's a category winner. And people only speculate heavily 80 to 90% of their portfolio on a bunch of random altcoins that don't have much technology behind them, or a working product, or even a real team, right? So if you're going to do stuff like that, it must be in very tiny allocations. We're talking a 1 to 3% max. And that's what I've been teaching with all of my what I'm investing in specials. Maybe next week I'll do a what I'm investing in special. We'll see. That might be the appropriate time because it's going to be eclipse season. So perhaps you guys will appreciate that. I'm not sure, but that feels like it might be right to do since I brought it up. But anyways, getting back to this, several key projects right now are heavily discounted. And as mentioned in my recent update post, this is actually the first time in a while where like I actually want to invest in crypto. And there's several reasons why, of course. But honestly, it's just like a feeling that the environment we're in, and it's more of like an intuitive thing at this point. And I remember back during the Terra Luna crash, which was right over here, in 2022, which literally happened on a total lunar eclipse. And then we had the FTX crash right here, which was on the following total lunar eclipse in 2022. also the final lunar eclipse of our lunar cycle, and how I felt back then. And I'm feeling that way again. Like it's like an intuitive thing. So we're seeing those same extremes now into this total lunar eclipse in March, while being just a week out from eclipse season. And then we have the total solar, the annular solar eclipse on February 17th on the Chinese Lunar New Year. So it's like happening in this, it's happening at this time. It's aligning. My feeling is aligning with the timing. So this type of market chaos is just something we should expect around eclipse seasons, especially when it's the final full eclipse of its respective cycle, which is of course the case right now. And we have all the dates to keep in mind. We've been talking about this for the past 3 months, that 5 to 6 weeks before the total lunar eclipse or up to 2 to 3 weeks after the total lunar eclipse gives us the time frame to stay cautious and ultimately to practice emotional control, while any green days in the crypto market will almost certainly be met with the sentiment of we're back. That you're going to see a lot, but you haven't heard me taking it this way. You haven't heard me talking that way on a green day where I'm like, we're back. No, we need to get through eclipse season. So that's the reason why I'm operating this way right now. But now that we're here and we're seeing this type of price action, this is where I start to shift my focus into accumulating core positions. And before you take that as me saying, buy now, please understand that the market maker still has plenty of tricks up their sleeves. So I wouldn't expect this to just be like a straight line V-shaped recovery breakout into price discovery or whatever your imagination could be cooking up right now. As I've said often in recent red pills, we need to see structure first. We are focused on the bottoming structure, not just the bottom regarding the lowest price, because with how much leverage is in this market right now, it should be expected to see unbelievable volatility, especially when we're talking about crypto. So with that being said, let's get into this chart a little bit. Let's break this down a little bit more. I've pulled a macro fib from the 2017 all-time high around 19K down to the 2018 bear market low, which was around 3K. And by the way, I have the Fibonacci retracement tool set with this turned on at the bottom. Fib levels based on log scale. I have that turned on, and we're looking at a logarithmic chart right now. So just keep that in mind in case you're pulling the fib tool the same way, but you're not getting the same levels in these fibs as I'm getting. It's likely because you don't have that setting turned on. And in the event that you have that setting turned on, or it's not letting you turn that setting on, you're going to want to hold Option L. It's going to turn it from logarithmic to linear. There's also this little settings icon right here where you can do the same. You could turn logarithmic on if you'd like. Hope that helps. Now, I went ahead and I did the same thing from this peak at 69K. Let me check my mic real quick, make sure it's all good. Okay, so from 69K over here down to around 15K from top to bottom, swing high to swing low, as many people say. And you'll see that as of our recent crash, we just had a couple days ago on the 5th of February, Bitcoin has officially backtested the same fib level from our prior cycle. So that's big. As many of you here are aware, this is actually my personal favorite fib level. It's the 888 fib. It's something that I've been using for at least 4 years now. So 0.888. You need to manually add this. So I've gone ahead and added it. You could adjust these as you like. I mean, obviously, if you don't know the fib levels, don't go ahead and just make them super random, but you have plenty of options over here that you could customize. And I've gone ahead and manually added the 0.888 in. It lives right above the golden pocket, right there between the golden pocket and the prior highs. This is just an interesting level that you need to do more experimental analysis with. It's something that I teach how to use a little bit more in depth inside of my advanced trading course. It's probably some stuff on it that you've seen here in red pills as well over the years. So I love this 888 fib. Start utilizing it in your own analysis and you'll see why I like it so much. But now getting back to this setup, some of you might be saying, well, Waters, we haven't hit 58K yet because that 888 on the local fib that we have is 58,300. And my response to that would be, well, we're close. And the fact this zone is being retested right into eclipse season is absolutely mind-blowing, because if you look at the last time it backtested the 888 fib of the prior cycle, it was on the last lunar eclipse of the lunar cycle in 2022. And if you look at the first time I marked this off, it was also the final lunar eclipse of that lunar cycle. How insane is that? Then we have all of these three examples. So let me restate it. Final lunar eclipse of the lunar cycle, final lunar eclipse of the lunar cycle, final lunar eclipse of the lunar cycle. This one's backtesting the same fib level from the prior cycle. Our recent one is retesting the prior fib from the last cycle, and they are all testing the same major support trend line as well. So the timing, the levels, this is just one massive parallel channel that's been in place since the 2017 Bitcoin cycle. So this is epic, because in many ways, this cycle here was like the first crypto figuring out what it could be. And then in the bear market, it was about figuring out, well, what gets to stay? But we're not even close to the institutions or banks getting involved or any regulations at all. Like, it was just literally the wild, wild west. And then after the C19 reset, we had all this DeFi stuff, NFTs, crazy meme coins. Like, we went from like just a couple thousand cryptos to like, what, 100,000 cryptos from here to here, or from this cycle back here to this cycle. And then as we've had this whole correction and till today, still some altcoins haven't recovered from this drawdown. So, and on top of that, we haven't seen too much new money come into crypto. I mean, even with the shit that Saylor's doing and a lot of these institutions, I don't really think it's representing in these charts. So we know that there's been a lot of like paper Bitcoin and everything. Anytime there's an ETF, that's the truth. And it's so funny. Recently, people have been saying, oh, Bitcoin's dropping so much because it doesn't have the scarcity model anymore. There's no longer 21 million Bitcoin because of the ETFs and this and this and this and this. And they're going through and naming shit that was already the case over here. Like, how many narratives do we need? Are you trying to tell me that the ETFs here are now being figured out that there's no longer a scarcity model today? Like, are we missing chromosomes? What's happening? So it's just, we're getting noisy right now. And everyone's a genius all of a sudden. Like, they're figuring out, it took them 2 fucking years to figure this out. This is why I don't talk about the scarcity model, because none of these things even matter. And at the end of the day, they're all noise on both sides of the equation. So when you hear Pompliano and Michael Saylor and all these people talking the positive angle, and then you have on the other side all the negative angle, it's just noise. That's all it is. Follow the money, man, not the drama. So we can, of course, go lower from where we've recently hit. I feel, at least with that being said, though, in my opinion, 80% of the pain is behind us now, maybe even 90%, but I won't get too far ahead of myself. For now, our focus, as it's been for months now, is getting through this eclipse season, taking it one step at a time. And considering how the 2019 bottoming structure went, we saw another push to the lows a couple weeks after the final lunar eclipse of the lunar cycle. And that was also the case back in 2015 as well. And even in our last bear market, you can see it's like it took a couple of weeks for us to mark that macro bottom. So that's why I feel overall the months of February and March here in 2026 should be a macro bottom. And as stated recently in the eclipse season decoded, I mentioned we also have the August eclipse season to consider as well, which could turn out to be like a macro double bottom. And that would be similar to how Bitcoin was in 2015 over here, where we had this macro double bottom before recovery. And as you can see, the recovery happened after the fourth lunar eclipse of the lunar cycle. So if we are to entertain an additional lunar eclipse in our lunar cycle, which I've never done before, but of course, because we haven't lived through it yet, it's speculation until it happens. Just look at the reaction that Bitcoin has after that. So we can chop and bottom throughout that whole time frame, now to the summer, with some de-risking in between. But then it's after that, it shows that 2027 could be, well, not just 2027. It shows that the rally that could come from around September of this year until like February of 2027 could be bringing us all the way back to like halfway point, which for Bitcoin could be 100K. And imagine if all the altcoins have been reset already, just like they were reset here in June of 2022. And then Bitcoin was to recover halfway up from where it dropped. You're talking about 400% gains in some altcoins. So that's very easy for altcoins to do when a lot of them have lost 90 to 95, maybe even more of percent of their value. So just keep that bottoming structure idea in mind from 2015. We've entertained it before, and it could be part of the cycle's bottoming structure in our current cycle. And ultimately, that's where the true wealth is built during the scariest phase of the cycle. Now, before we move on to recapping the way that silver and gold traded this week, which by the way, that play actually turned out precisely how I showed you that technical setup would play out in last week's red pill. So before we pivot over to the metals, I just want to show you how this isn't the first time we've seen Bitcoin and crypto crash into the dates of February 6th and February 7th, or sorry, February 5th and February 6th, because that happened right here in 2018. Take a quick sip. All right. So you see this major crash for Bitcoin. It happened literally into February 5th, February 6th. And what's so wild about this is this daily candle was down 15%. And then the following day on February 6th, we were slightly lower, but then we got bought back up and we finished off the day green, February 6th, almost 12%. So keep that in mind. 15% down on the 15th, 12% up on the 6th. Did I say the 15th? Sorry. 15% up on the 5th and 12% up on the 6th. But on the 6th, we sunk lower and then bought back up. So look at where we are here in 2026. We have a 14% daily close, and then the following day we went lower, and then we finished off February 6th up 12%. Absolutely crazy. Now, what followed that move back here in 2018 was this buyback. And this is where it gets pretty interesting because we moved up until around February 17th right here. As you can see, after the 17th, we started to stall out. We couldn't really push much higher. And then we had a little bit of a back test into around like the 25th of February, followed by a retest of the local highs, like a micro double top into March 4th before getting rejected and then eventually taking another hit lower into the end of the month, which had a pivot date of around April 1st. So all of this price action was completed March, which is kind of what we've been talking about for most of today's podcast. So what's crazy about all of these dates is not only did we complete this crash and we've so far had a start of a reversal, I'm not calling it just yet, but I'm talking about this, how it is interesting how it occurred this way. Other reason I'm bringing it up is because February 17th and March 4th in this example are in alignment with our eclipses this year, since February 17th is our solar eclipse on the Chinese Lunar New Year, and then we have the year of the horse. So then we have the total lunar eclipse on March 3rd. Very wild. Now, I'm not saying it will play out exactly the same as this, but it does feel strange. we're seeing this move, especially since I used to always talk about the significance of February 8th into February 9th in my work with regards to pivotal moments for Bitcoin. I'm not going to get too deep into that right now. It would take a little bit of time. And just to say that in the past we've talked about it, and now that I'm thinking about it, we have the Super Bowl today, and today is February 8th, and we even saw like people trying to leak this information that like World War III starts on February 8th because something in the Epstein files, and it's just a completely doctored, like photoshopped fake email. It's really sad, bro. Like with the AI shit and like everything that's happening right now, I wouldn't even be surprised if all those emails are fake in general. Like, who cares? This fucking guy died so long ago. Like, it's irrelevant. If these emails would have been leaked like the day he died or like within the year of him dying, then it would have significance. But the New World Order doesn't work that way. They just don't. They need something to be released. This is why they're still doing this JFK bullshit. Which, by the way, wasn't even real. It was a fucking doll. God, I shouldn't say that, right? Yeah. Too much sauce, too much truth. Now everyone's going to be asking me about that. Who cares? Let's move on. A lot of people want to know about the Super Bowl. So for those who were asking for a Super Bowl decode this year, it was honestly physically impossible for me to pull that off. I have so much going on in my life right now as I'm prepping to launch the biggest project I've ever worked on. Something that's taken me and a full team of people almost a half a year to build. The idea and the start of the project is like 9 months old, actually. But we've been building with a new team for the past 5 months, every single day, overtime, and it's coming very soon. But that's my baby. That's my main focus right now. The new custom platform and the mobile app that we're about to release. So that will be an absolute game changer, and I need to stay focused on that. And we're so close to launch. So I'll definitely keep you all updated when it's good to go. But for now, our focus is to create the best conscious platform on the internet, and we're making that happen. But that means I don't have the time to be doing these other things because I need to stay focused and I can't be distracted. And I'm not a sports decoder, so that's not my whole thing, all right? So, since I was thinking about the date of February 8th leading up to this weekend, especially after what just happened and the comparison to that 2018 chart, I realized that the Super Bowl that's happening today will be the first Super Bowl to ever happen on February 8th. Okay, it's live right now. Shit. Interesting. So yeah, it'll be the first Super Bowl ever to happen on February 8th. And with that being said, I feel the outcome of this game, like all the other ones, will definitely be significant for these markets. And the fact that this Super Bowl is hosted at Levi's Stadium is symbolic because Levi's Stadium is the home of, you can see it right there, Levi's Stadium. It's the home of the San Francisco 49ers. And if you remember my Black Moon Decoded presentation that I released, it was like right before the US selection on in November 2024. The one where I connected the dots with Kamala Harris being from the San Francisco Bay Area and how the San Francisco 49ers lost Super Bowl 58 against the Chiefs earlier that year. Let me actually pull this up. I posted it a little bit earlier. So we have this cryptic Joe Biden post where he said, just like we drew it up with laser eyes, and the exact moment of that post, Bitcoin hit 49K, and then it officially started breaking out the following day. So we have the 49ers lose, Bitcoin hits 49K, Bitcoin starts breaking out the following day, pushing into 50. Also, Satoshi Nakamoto, this archetype, turned 49 years old that year, just a couple months after the Super Bowl. So that was tied into it. And 49 is important because it's 7 times 7. And that was also, we were talking about this quite a bit with the Jubilee year. And I won't go there, but this archetype, Satoshi Nakamoto, has a name of Japanese origin. And then the next time Bitcoin hit 49K that year, was during the Japan yen carry trade. The unwind of the Japan yen carry trade, which we were talking about a little bit earlier, was right here. So we have 49ers lose 49K Bitcoin. Satoshi turns 49. We crash into 49. Japan symbolism, Japan yen carry trade. And we haven't seen Bitcoin trade that low since that event. Simulation confirmed. So since this Super Bowl is Super Bowl LX, that is the number 60. Bitcoin just crashed to 60K into this weekend, and it's landing on this key date of February 8th, which we've never had a Super Bowl on this date before. And the fact that it's hosted at the stadium of the 49ers, which, by the way, the last time they played, they lost the Super Bowl, the 49ers, 2 days into the year of the rabbit. So that would be, 2 days after the end of the year of the rabbit. Technically in the second day of the year of the dragon. And the reason why this rabbit year matters is because this thing, I don't know what this, I've never even listened to this guy, but this thing will be performing in the halftime show. Bad Bunny. Bunny, of course, is tied to rabbit symbolism. So we have that big connection right there. Bunny, rabbit, right? And we have the 49ers lost that last Super Bowl 2 days after the year of the rabbit came to its conclusion. And the 49ers lost their rematch, losing for the second time against the Chiefs. And this was their second Super Bowl to go into, this was the second Super Bowl ever to go into overtime. And they lost with 22 points. And the prior Super Bowl they played against each other was literally on the date February 2nd, 2020. 2020, you remove the 0 using the rules of numerology, you have 22. Then you have the date 2-2. So it's 2-2, 2-2-2. 49ers lose 22 points in overtime, second overtime ever, on the second day of the year of the dragon. Absolutely fucking crazy. So this is all tied together. Why? Because this game is being hosted at the stadium of the team that this is all tied to. And how many years has it been since that Super Bowl? 2 years. This is very, very important. 2 plus 2 plus 2 equals 6. We're at the 60th Super Bowl. Remove the 0. You see where I'm going? So, another thing to mention about this artist, quickly looked up his birthday. He was born in the year of the dog. Donald Trump is also a dog year. And this could be important because the people who support Trump the most, the conservatives, are the Patriots. And that's one of the teams that are playing in the Super Bowl. They're playing against the Seattle Seahawks, representing one of the most liberal cities in the United States, probably just a little less liberal than one other city that comes to mind, and that is, ding, 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 San Francisco, essentially where this Super Bowl will be taking place. So you have this political polarity as part of this ritual as well. Now, like I said, I didn't have the time to go thoroughly into this. I am doing my best to take out some of these key points that I would normally look for if I wanted to do a quick decode. And that could be very educational for you guys who are interested in decoding and how I would start a decode, for example. These are the things that I immediately look for. And the Chinese zodiac year is huge for me. And I'm going to show you why. So I just went over it with this controversial figure, apparently, Bad Bunny, tied to the year of the rabbit and the concept here. But also, the year that he is born is also the same with Trump. Trump's the current quarterback. And this is where it starts to get very interesting because the quarterback of, sorry, did I say quarterback? Who cares? The quarterback of the Patriots, I don't know his name, something Drake something. He was born in the year of the horse. And we're about to enter the year of the horse. And this will be the first Super Bowl appearance for the Patriots since the Bill Belichick and Tom Brady days. And Tom Brady was born in the year of the snake. And the Super Bowl today is, of course, happening during the year of the snake. And the reason this is absolutely significant is because this will be the first Super Bowl with this team since this guy was the head honcho, you know? All 6 of the Patriots' Super Bowl victories were with their head coach, Bill Belichick, and quarterback, Tom Brady. But this is where things get interesting. Did you know one of the Patriots' Super Bowl victories was actually against the Seattle Seahawks? And guess when it took place? Let me pull this up. What is this embarrassing, brave background we got going? All right. this is this shit's gonna blow your mind. This was the last Super Bowl that they played against each other. The only Super Bowl they played against each other. Guess when it took place? During the year of the horse, which was the 2014 NFL season. And guess what Super Bowl it was? Super Bowl 49. Like, literally, Super Bowl 49. We're talking about the 49ers, and they're playing at the 49ers Stadium. This is this is unbelievable. Unbelievable. These guys went against each other in Super Bowl 49, and here they are at a rematch at the 49ers Stadium, tied to the year of the horse, which 2026 this year will effectively be the year of the horse. And then here we have Super Bowl 60, Patriots going against the Seahawks at the 49ers Stadium. Yeah, you can't make this shit up. So that was also a close game, by the way. Keep that in mind. It was 28-24 with a fourth quarter comeback from the Patriots. And I can't forget to mention the fact that the Patriots also won the Super Bowl on February 5th, 2017. It was Super Bowl 51, which was just weeks after Donald Trump's first inauguration. So keep that in mind because Donald Trump gets into office in his first inauguration. Patriots win just a couple weeks later. Here Trump is the president again. Patriots are playing Super Bowl, not immediately after he became president. Of course, we had the Eagles win last year, but it's just something to keep in mind how we have the Patriots and we have Trump again. And that Super Bowl that I was just referencing, 51, that was a close game too. It was 34-28. So the concept that I think a lot of people are looking for here is, will the Patriots win their 7th Super Bowl this time around? Well, consider this last bit of info. The Seattle Seahawks have won one Super Bowl in the past. Ooh, they were called the Hawks. I didn't know that. That's very interesting. See, if I went into a full decode, I would start looking into all of this. But the Hawks, that's their current nickname? I'm just thinking about, because you know that show Stranger Things, and then it's because a lot of people are like, Waters, duh, they're the Seahawks, duh. Like, but my whole thing is like, I'm looking at this from like a very holistic perspective. So it's like, I'm thinking of Hawkins, that town in Stranger Things, and how that was the season finale, you know, which was, let's not even go there. Okay, so they have one Super Bowl victory. This is really, really, really interesting. It's going to also blow your mind because look at when this Super Bowl happened. February 2nd, 2024. 2014, sorry. Why did I say 2024? I got a lot on my mind right now, but the Super Bowl, the one and only Super Bowl that the Seahawks have won, was also technically in the last year of the horse. So it just gets more insane. What are the odds? We have the Seahawks won their first and only Super Bowl during the year of the horse. And then in the same Chinese year, both the Patriots and the Seahawks face each other also during the year of the horse. So, how? How? So, if your mind isn't blown yet, guess who won the Super Bowl? Or guess who the Seahawks beat in their first Super Bowl victory? The fucking Broncos. The Broncos are a horse. So you have the horse team plays in the horse year. Uh, and this is the only Super Bowl this team has won. Like, you don't even need to watch sports. It's just all rigged. Like it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. The fact that we have the same team facing each other tied back to this year as we did in the last Chinese year. This is not like an election, guys. Realize that, like, for example, when you're decoding an election, it's a little bit easier because it's happening every 4 years. So, for example, there will always be an election on a dragon year. It's easier then. Elections are easier. With the Super Bowl thing, it's much more difficult because it's happening every year. So when you're seeing it all in alignment with the Chinese zodiac, it becomes undeniable. We've did this with the Eagles before. We've did this with the 49ers, with the Chiefs. I've even went into this with the Patriots before too. The 49ers were essentially like the what the Chicago Bulls used to be, and then like what later became like what would be a new team that kind of like took the reins. But we have like the 49ers used to be like what the Patriots became. So you have like the Joe Montana era, and then you have the Tom Brady era. That's all it is. It's like they need to pick a decade where like one team reigns supreme, and then they'll tie it to some famous coach and some famous quarterback. That's the same shit they did with basketball. And they did it with going from Michael Jordan, Kobe to LeBron. Then he'll go away and there'll be a new guy, and there'll always be a new guy. It just keeps moving and moving and moving. And they always want to have like a piranha harvest out of all of this. And you could do the same thing for the NBA Finals. You could do the same thing for the World Series. Use the Chinese zodiac system. It's absolutely mind blowing. And when you start seeing the patterns, it becomes undeniable. So this is really fascinating. How scripted this whole sports thing is. I have like pretty much 5 years now of proving this, and I'm not even a sports decoder, nor do I plan on becoming one. It's just kind of like comedy to me at this point. But anyways, yeah, this is going to be interesting because those Super Bowl victories for the Patriots that we talked about, they were all pretty close games, but the Seahawks victory against the Broncos was an absolute blowout. They won 43-8. And the fact both of them won Super Bowls during the year of the horse, but the one Super Bowl the Seahawks won, and it's their only one in the franchise, was technically for the 2013 season, which was the last year of the snake. We're still in the snake year now. This was a snake year season. That's obviously important to consider. So I'm not saying the Seahawks will win, but there's definitely something to that, right? For sure, there's something to that. And it could just be like the Tom Brady, Bill Belichick era is it. That's what that franchise will like be known for. But guys, I'm not the best with sports, but I do believe that the 49ers, they had, what was his name? Steve Young? Don't remember. I used to actually care about sports back then, but not for the past like 10, 15 years. But Steve Young, they went on to win a Super Bowl with him, right? Anywho, he was super fucking famous too. Not like Joe Montana, but he was like a legend as well. So does that mean this guy right now for the Patriots will become the next Tom Brady on his team, just like Steve Young was after Joe Montana? Sure, very possible. That kind of feels like the vibe that we got with LeBron after Kobe, how he went to the Lakers after they ritualized Kobe. So he'll end his career as being the Laker, you know, and that will be like the legacy. Funny enough, Joe Montana ended his career, I believe, on the Chiefs. And then you have Pat Mahomes, the guy who's like the new Tom Brady. I believe that's probably the truth in this whole equation. It's not like this Patriots quarterback is going to become the next time. It's more like it's shifting over from the 49ers with Joe Montana to then we get Tom Brady to now we get Pat Mahomes, and that guy will be the guy. I forgot how many Super Bowls he already has with the Chiefs. So Yeah, I don't know enough about sports. I only come around to it once a year, and it's only because I want to get this significant data to understand how these rituals will unfold in the other areas of life, because that's how they do them. They know these get a lot of attention, a lot of people tune into it, the commercials, the halftime show, etc. Everybody's going to be watching. Who cares? And even people who don't care will watch, unlike regular game seasons or even playoff games. So, with that being said, it should be very clear to why these two teams are even playing against each other in the first place. You should now be able to make sense of it, considering the last time they both played against each other was tied to this Chinese zodiac year that we're going to be in here in 2026, and then the one time ever in the entire franchise of the Seattle Seahawks that they won a Super Bowl was in the year of the snake. We're in the year of the snake. Also, the fact that we have both of these teams playing against each other at 49ers Stadium, and the last time they played against each other in a Super Bowl was Super Bowl 49. Today, we'll complete the ritual, just like the Super Bowl rematches that we've been seeing a lot lately. It's been a theme. The Eagles going against the Chiefs in a Super Bowl rematch last year. Then the year prior was the 49ers going against the Chiefs in a rematch, etc., etc. So this will definitely be an interesting one. And ultimately, this game will be, as always, the exoteric prana harvest ritual that provides code we can apply to the year ahead, and it will strengthen my Year of the Horse decode even more with the symbolism that'll be revealed during the game. And I hope you guys appreciate me taking a little bit of time to dive into this. These are things that I went very deep in the Year of the Dragon decoded regarding my decoding system, the year of the rabbit decoded that I did, the year of the dragon decoded that I did. So I do this all the time with like these big yearly decodes. I didn't have the time to do an isolated Super Bowl decode this year. So I wanted to get some of this info over to you. Hopefully you find it valuable. And let's see how this game goes. I'll quickly refresh and see if anything has changed. And it would be fascinating if this snake year goes in the Seahawks' favor, also because the hawk and the tie to the snake year symbolism with the eagle. I know a hawk and an eagle aren't the same, but the bird symbolism, because we have the snake and the bird symbolism together with the back of the dollar bill, with the Mexican flag, that is huge. I did this all in my Year of the Snake decoded, so that's something. That's definitely something too. And then we have the Patriots and tied to Trump and how all the promises with Trump and how negative it's felt, calling himself the crypto president. Meanwhile, we've seen a fucking horrible year for crypto since he got his presidency marked the top and he launched a meme coin, which further made this market class seem less sophisticated. Now he's talking about the Clarity Act all over again. It's still more drama because of that. What else? He's mentioned in the Epstein files like 2,000 times or something. I don't give a fuck, but I'm just saying, like, these are negative things on the Trump side. You feel me? All the, like, the tariff crash at the beginning of the present, his second term, all of that, you know? And then we have silver symbolism on both these teams, right? So that's another thing to keep in mind. The 49ers are symbolic of gold. And then we have the game at 49ers Stadium. So what's the gold price right now? That's where I want to go to. Yeah, did gold open at 40? Fuck, oh my God, dude, it fucking opened at 49. Yeah, this is a scam. Everything in your life is a scam. Enjoy the scam. Guess what what the element on the periodic table gold is? 79. Aurum. It's all a scam. All right. As promised, let's pivot over to the charts, review what's transpired over the week for silver and gold, since we're talking about that. Another historic week, and we actually had silver dip even lower. We had silver coming down to $64 per ounce, which I don't want to keep blowing your minds, but if you measure the full correction from the $121 level down to the current low, that's right. Silver, the 47th element, on the periodic table just had a 47% correction from the all-time high. I mean, I could just leave it at that and we can move on because that's insane. How many more times does this 47 code play out for us? It's just madness at this point. And that wasn't enough for you. Gold actually closed its daily candle on that exact day at the $4,700 zone, both completing that 47 code ritual on the same day. And then we have gold opening up at the 49 code level. We have the 49er Stadium Super Bowl happening right now, tied to the teams that played against each other in Super Bowl 49. Just saying. So let's look over to this though. You guys might remember the idea that I shared with you where I did the fib pull from the swing high to the swing low. And initially it was pulled like this, and we did barely hit, because remember, it was the red pill was here. So we pulled it down to the swing low. That's Monday after the red pill. And then it comes up to barely hitting the 0.5 fib. This was something that was mentioned, the dead cat bounce concept. But then the other thing that was mentioned was just the idea that coming up first would be very normal, very, very normal price action. So we had that move up, but then we also had the crazy event on the 5th, which precious metals took a hit as well. And now you could see if we were to pull the fib that way, we did get some newer levels. Sorry. Just going to move that over here. And what I'm going to do now is adjust as needed. Probably going to put this to 94. We have 49ers, 94 code is a little safer. And then we have 107 I'm going to keep because 107 is the atomic mass of silver. And I would then not get excited about 100, but that's the play. Most likely it's going to be the same thing that I talked to you about already. It doesn't need to happen immediately. It could take some time. It could be even into the lunar eclipse. And this is the zone of interest for me. But we got pretty damn washed out. Like, I mean, coming all the way back to 64 is wild. So it's already had a almost 50% correction. I think that's enough. I mean, I would expect now something like that, personally. But if the dead cat bounce wants to play, where it's just the 0.5 fib or slightly higher, and it doesn't get back to like the 95 area for now, that's fine as well. I mean, we did chug through that 95 area, and then we had it all taken out in a single daily candle. So this is weak. This was needed, but this is also weak. So I had to deal with a lot of shit from the precious metals people all throughout this move, unfortunately, because I was talking about the 107 target, and then I also brought up the 120 target whilst we were opening up at the 107 target. And I said anything above 107 is dangerous. Like, consider getting out. And I got a lot of shit for that, and it was weird because it's like, how much more do you guys want to make? And I was already hearing stories from some high net worth clients that were like, I can't sell a lot of this. Like, funny enough, that was even something I heard Grant Cardone talk about, which I'm not like the biggest fan of him, but whatever, you know. Grant Cardone was talking about how he had friends that wanted to unload like a couple million in silver, and there's just, no one will buy it. No one's buying that much. You can't sell it. And if you want to, you have to take like a 30% discount. So there's not even anything good about having it in bulk and selling it in bulk. Now, again, that might be a case-by-case basis. That might be very different in Thailand or China or whatever. And even along the way, people have been saying this. They're like, oh, the Chinese market is selling it for this. Who fucking cares? Are you Chinese? Do you live in Shanghai? Are you going to fly there with your pillowcase full of silver like Santa Claus and unload $1 million or $100,000 in silver bars in the Chinese market? No, you just aren't. So who gives a fuck what it's trading at in Shanghai market? I mean, be realistic here. To sell silver, the real silver, you need a real physical buyer. So nobody's going to buy large amounts of this. It was a dangerous grind up to begin with. It was insanely overbought, and that's why it corrected the way that it did just 2 weeks ago. That's why we had another fucked up 19% correction on Friday, and that's why after the Friday close, we dug even deeper. This was all everyone complaining about this move down being because of paper silver doesn't want to accept the truth that this whole move up was because of paper silver. It's liquidations. So all of this drama, I don't love it here because I think we're better than that. I'm not speaking the way that I'm speaking to create division or whatever. It's called the Red Pill Podcast, right? This is for taking the red pill. And I believe these are truths that are necessary to understand. The people that comment and they're like, Waters, you don't know enough about silver to talk about. Well, we're getting the price action that was anticipated. Why do I need to know about it? Like, what would it do for me to know about the Shanghai silver price when you can't even sell it at that price? Why does it matter? I'm seeing it the same thing in Singapore, where they're buying it for $70 off of you, but you can't sell it for 120. Ain't that some shit? Imagine you wanted to go sell a Bitcoin and they were like, you could only sell it for 50,000. Our bullion shop could sell it for 120, but you could only sell yours and we'll only give it to you for $70. You could only give it to us for $70, I mean. So what's the scam here? I'm just saying. So gold is a different animal. You know, gold is a very, very different animal in that way, in my opinion. And that's why I'm much more bullish on what gold has done. And as somebody who invests in gold, I'm not selling it, whilst I would have been selling the silver play for sure. It's very, very simple too. If you just start to do the maths, I forgot what is it? 5 kilos of gold is a million. Anyways, that's irrelevant. I want to move on. I think I've proven the point here enough that we just need to stick to what's reality. And if things are happy for us, realize that a lot of the time it's really happy because of the same instrument that you're complaining about on the other end, which is leverage. That's just what we're dealing with, no matter if it's crypto, Bitcoin, whatever. You know, the funny thing that people brought up about Bitcoin recently, how it's no longer 21 million Bitcoin and the scarcity model doesn't matter and whatever. Dude, that's been the case since like when for precious metals? 2000? The year 1993? Like when did that become a reality for precious metals? How many decades deep are they dealing with that? That's why they have all this quote unquote manipulation. Well, this is manipulation too. So they needed retail to catch at the top. Be smart. All right, so I think the play here is that there's still another de-risking move ahead, maybe 94, maybe 95. It would be great to see 100 again, but I am cautious that we're just going to see a full recovery and a new move higher, even though we did see that with gold back here, where we saw it stall out in October, already breaking into price discovery, and then it had this nice breakout back test and continuation. Silver took time. Same back test, but it was of prior all-time highs. And then it obviously started getting very, very overheated. Gold also, in my opinion, is very overheated too. But the back test we got in gold was back to the area that would be in alignment with silver at like 50. So look at gold. I'm going to turn off all the indicators. I'm going to just hide everything. Look at that wick and look to the left. We essentially are back testing prior resistance in a way. Silver, on the other hand, it back tested nothing. It back tested thin air because we still have all the way down to 50 to get to that same zone. And if you were to look at the weekly, mama me, you have thin air down to literally like $35. And this breaks silver investors' hearts. But it's like that's what we're dealing with here. That's the same shit we're dealing with XRP. It's the same. You have nothing down till $30 for silver. Well, gold, you have this cluster over here, and you would still be in price discovery from 2008, the great financial crisis. Even if, and by the way, you would be up because that's the 1980 top. To backtest that, you would still be up 150%. Silver, on the other hand, it had a double top, and its breakout is now up 150%. Its first venture into price discovery in almost 50 years is the same that gold has been up since the price discovery of the great financial crisis on the backtest, which was that's a technically bullish thing too. Way more bullish setup. So yes, you have the ROI with silver, but then you have the drawdown possibility as well, which has been the case for the entire existence of the asset class. So with that being said, I mean, it sounds like I'm really like people are gonna say like you sound bearish or something, and it's not. It's just like I'm cautious about the fact that there's all this thin air. And if we went under 47 again for silver, I would consider a way to get in, maybe through like miners or something, but I don't want to hold silver coins. It's just not advantageous unless you're working with very small amounts of money. But if I'm talking like converting a portion of my net worth, it would only make sense with something like gold. And then I think the ROI on my side is probably a lot better than something like a high yield savings account, probably better than a bond. And then also, I don't need a lot of it physically in my possession with it equaling a lot of money, you know? So that's very nice too. While the silver, you need to have so many canisters of these coins and all of these bars of it. Like, unless you want to have a vault that is protected all the time, or you want to hope that a mint or someone who's storing it for you isn't going to steal it from you. Like, that's also a possibility. That's what happened. That could happen in a confiscation at any time. So I would worry about that too. And then ultimately, all of that sounds like a headache, and it makes me go, why not just invest in Bitcoin? So then there's the conversation between the Bitcoin and the silver precious metal people that hate each other. And that was kind of what I was addressing a couple weeks ago. The tribalism is sad. Just take the emotions out of it, look at it for what it is. Gold chart looks significantly better than the silver chart. When I see a breakout like this, it's not healthy. We need a cool down phase, and the cool down phase could be, unfortunately, a lot more downside. So look for 50 to probably be tested by Q4 this year. And if that is the case, we could be having the quote unquote rotation that we talked about last week. And that is very bullish. So what I would like to see is us coming back up and playing out this fractal. I have 3 fractals overlaid. They're very tough to see, but they both actually interestingly come down into May. Now, does that align with the June-July concept that I've been teaching you guys about with Bitcoin? How we have the total solar eclipse in isolation in August? And how that would mean that if we do rip the Band-Aid off now and Bitcoin and crypto just continues to crash hard and bottoms in March, then it has a J recovery like it did over here into the summer, like into the American European summer, you see? Because right here was the first solar eclipse of the solar cycle. Bitcoin crashed really quickly. This cycle also only had 3 total lunar eclipses. We've crashed violently. This cycle only has 3 total lunar eclipses. And do we J recover into July? August. So June would look crazy, right? Meaning May, there's something there, man. There's something there because all 3 of these fractals with the timing, they go down into like June, pretty much the end of May. So we'll continue to let that play out. We got to get through this week, see how the reaction is off of that historic liquidation that we had on Thursday, Friday. Let's get into Bitcoin. Just real quick. So you heard the story already. We're insanely over sold on the daily. We made it down to, what was it, 15? right here. We barely ever see that. The last time we saw that was March 11th, the C19 crash on the daily. That was the last time we saw that. We didn't even see that at the bottom of the bear market, 2022, 2023. Then the next time we saw that in the past was the bottom from 2018. So you get the big picture. We talked about that a lot at the beginning of today's podcast. On the weekly, it's the same situation. So we've had the close. Yes. Okay. We've had the weekly close officially. And that means that we now have a 29 weekly close RSI. Over here, we started dipping below into that territory. And you can see when we got there off of the first big event, we grinded a little bit and we moved a little bit up. And this is what I was talking about, how our bottoming structure is likely to be around eclipse season in general. We'll keep that in mind. But if we were to measure from here to there, that would also show us how the next eclipse season is in that part of the conversation. Right over there. So could it be that where we have this below 80K, above 50K chop? We're going to keep that on in our minds for sure. For sure. But right now we're insanely oversold. So that's that. Where's the 50 moving average? Wow. Okay, so the 50 moving average never got retested, and that's still sitting almost at 100K. And right now, that would be violent. If we were to get bought back all the way to 100K in the short term, that would liquidate probably like 50 billion total shorts. That would be massive. So that would be a leverage reset on the other end. And we've almost back tested the 200 week moving average, which a lot of people talk about. And every week that's going to tick up a little bit. So between now and the end of March, this 200 moving average will maybe be around 60K. But right now it's around 58K. And funny enough, you see it's at 58,250. That's where the 888 fib is. So, like I said, rip the Band-Aid off. It would be great, but it doesn't need to happen. Just like in the last cycle, a lot of people thought that the 200 moving average was the bottom, but Bitcoin went way lower. And the last cycle, it was the perfect bottom. The last cycle before that, it was the perfect bottom, held as a weekly support. But the recent cycle we had, it wasn't. So these things are still fresh for Bitcoin. It's hard to make calls, when you're just analyzing purely on moving averages. In the last cycle, it was pretty clean though, how it started. A break below the 55, a rejection off the 55, and then we came tumbling down into the 200s. That is a similar setup for us right now here too. But now everyone's anticipation is going to be maybe even break lower than the 200 moving averages, because that's what we did in the last cycle. And I'm not sure if I want to keep that whole we're gonna repeat the last bear market thing exactly the same, because I don't feel like we've repeated the bull market the same either. Look at this parabolic advance for Bitcoin. We never had that. We just stepped up. And now we're filling a layer of liquidity that we really haven't spent too much time trading on. And it was all of our resistance from 2024 and the double top from 2021. This is like the best retest we could possibly do for more price discovery. So is this just a massive version of what happened over here? It's possible. It's very possible. And the eclipse season is kind of the main focus for me at that point. Let's look at the daily. Yeah, we're just super oversold. I mean, this is crazy. So yeah, the bottom concept right now is that if we can't hold 60, the next major layer will probably be around where that Japan unwind of the Japan yen carry trade went down, which is like 54 down to 49, and that would be a crazy move. And then we've already been talking about the 47K concept. I just feel like that's very extreme. A 47K Bitcoin would be a total correction of 62%. And honestly, that's not the worst thing to happen, because in the last cycle we had a 77% correction, And the cycle before that, we had like an 84% correction. So for us to do that would not be weird. And that also mimics what happened in the great financial crisis with Apple. So we had the dot-com bubble in 2000 into 2001. And then we had the great financial crisis. So is this the dot-com bubble? I think so. And is this our quote unquote great financial crisis for crypto? I think so. I very much think so. Because if we looked at the relationship between all those tech stocks that couldn't have made it or didn't really make it through 2000, if they weren't wiped out by 2002 and they made it to 2009, they looked like absolute shit compared to things like Microsoft and Amazon and Apple. While Microsoft, Amazon, and Apple looked like Bitcoin. They were in price discovery back testing key levels. And I recently brought up a chart here that I think is really fascinating too. This idea. Something I want to talk about maybe a little bit more in the future. We just have to get through this moment. But like if we were to look at where this line is, it's right where Bitcoin is trading right now. So this is still in play. And this dip that we did in the Google chart could very well be the one that we just did. Or we're in the process of completing it with regards to the push down to 60K a couple of days ago. So this is still perfectly in play. And I think NVIDIA did this also. And that's like kind of how I would look at Bitcoin. It's like the NVIDIA or the Google in this conversation. The overarching kind of like category winner for the whole technology. And then there's branch off technologies that do things way better than Bitcoin, but they're not looked at as Bitcoin is looked at by these institutions, banks, whales, etc. So yeah, interesting setups here for sure. And we've had this weekly close come in. We're insanely oversold. Let's move over to ETH. Really, actually, let's look at strategy. The reason I want to look at strategy is because we also are doing the same thing where we have the blow off top. We have this resistance here from 2024, and then we've had strategy back test. This blow off top, the support level of the 2024 market. There's your Japan yen carry trade. And we've just back tested that same area with an 80% correction from the top. So this move right here is pretty much, as you can see, the lowest MicroStrategy went. Then it got bought back, chopped, and it went one leg higher. So that'd be like coming back up to here. You see this kind of like W false breakout. It'd be like coming back up to like the 250s, the 240 zone, and then getting rejected and coming back for a double bottom. Now, I think strategy is a huge psyop. I think they're irrelevant, but they are being used as the thing to give your attention to with the Bitcoin conversation. They need that. The New World Order likes having that. Okay. And that's what Michael Saylor is. And that's what strategy is. So I don't invest in strategy. I will never. I have zero. I don't care about them. But people always ask my take on these sort of things. And the fact that the structure that we've had from this bear market has almost been identical to this current one. Look at the fractal overlay. That's just taking this fractal, laying it over the top. And from the absolute peak to the way this got rejected over here, like it did over here, to the drawdown, and how the most extreme part is pretty much happening this month. I mean, then we have this other final drawdown into October. I'm not sure if it's going to be exactly the same bottoming structure, but I do feel like the start of this was also very similar. And that's to be like, where's strategy in this whole Bitcoin conversation? And I think he even came out like a couple days ago, or maybe today, I'm not sure. Maybe it was 2 days ago. And he said that like the goal is to acquire like 5 to 7% of Bitcoin's network, like the whole network. And if that were to occur, it would be something like a $500,000 Bitcoin. And like they're just still giving all this hopium and all this positive stuff. So he's much more that kind of dude. But the last year, like the last calendar year, has left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths with Saylor. So I believe they're kind of like in the process of ritualizing him out. And they're using him in a lot of ways because he's insanely smart and he can talk really, eloquently, and he's very sophisticated in his ideas. And whether he's telling the truth or not, it doesn't matter. It's how does he perform in these interviews that he gets on. And he does very well. So the New World Order loves people like him because he is part of the beast system. So keep an eye on strategy, and the fact that they've already made this pretty much this exact move, and they got really oversold into the fifth, and then on the sixth popped up 26%. That's a sign. That's a sign. So there's definitely going to be something there for us to keep in mind moving forward with regards to that full play. Now, ETH, look at this. ETH just came back to the same rising support level that was a resistance back over here in the 2018 bear market. And it was back tested by ETH in April in the tariff crash. And then again, just again. Also, look at where it lines up. If I was to draw a line across the screen, let me pull a fib so you can see. We have almost back tested the 382, call it the 382, and we're back above the 0.5. Over here in the tariff crash, we had a correction into the 236. These are all solid absorption events following a major liquidation. So you can see the only reason I'm really putting a lot of emphasis on this is because of how quickly the bear market was finished for ETH in the last cycle. If we were to measure from top, over to bottom, it's 217 days. From here to here, around 400 days. We had alt euphoria in November. It's about 400 days. This move never went into price discovery. If we were to go the full 200 days, like we did over here, what was it, 218, 217, for example, March 23rd, which aligns with this. Three weeks after the final lunar eclipse. So the bottom could be very, 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 very close. Whether you're measuring it from alt euphoria to now, whether you're measuring it from the upside bull trap to now, it is very, very close. For all the people that want to say, well, we're just going to repeat the 2022 bear market. Okay. Well, a lot of alts bottomed fast. They broke down. They had major corrections. They got very oversold very quick. But if they were category winners that were here to stay, they bottomed much quicker. Obviously, a lot of other altcoins didn't make it through. That's just the nature of the casino, right? So I don't want to spend too much time on ETH, but this backtest that we're getting right now is very interesting, how we're holding structure. While XRP, for example, it recently broke through structure, and that's definitely important to consider this week. So we look back at how this is all transpired, and we had a flush to the 786, and then recently the flush down to the 702, coming back to like $1.11. So we have a lot of weakness right now happening in XRP, but the absorption is something that's also kind of fascinating. A lot of other projects don't experience that. That has been the case for XRP. So I'm feeling like we're here. We're very, very, very close, where we have this euphoria, coming back up, bull trap, oversold. This euphoria, bull trap, oversold. We are very close to bottoming, in my opinion, for XRP. I would say that we're either here or we're already there. I don't think we're at the start. So that means at best, if this were to flash more, and from like a structural perspective, we don't have a lot of time between $1.20 to 90 cents. then 90 cents is of course in the cards because we blasted through that whole zone. That's the problem with XRP and the problem with a lot of altcoins. It's why Bitcoin's been so fragile lately and why Bitcoin broke straight through 90, like dropped right to 60 so rapidly, because there's no structure built in between those levels. So it's not good. That's what I was warning about with silver. But now that we're here, we're through, I think, 80% of the pain, like I brought up a little bit ago. In my opinion, I think we're 80% through the pain. And I still think we're doing this play right here. It hasn't changed for me. I feel like silver coming back to like 17 an ounce, it looked so fucking uncomfortable back then. But now looking to where we are today with silver, that's my play that I think we're completing. So of course I could get more like granular here and I could break down piece by piece. I'm not saying silver is XRP or any of that shit. What I'm saying is the chart and the way that the setup is and how we've been dealing with the 2018 top and retesting and not breaking out into price discovery. And then we finally have silver breaking out into price discovery. I think it's going to go the same way for XRP, where it will just straight line break out after dealing with this current phase, which has a little bit of a recovery, getting back into the prior zone that it was rejected from, and then it keeps moving. So I think a majority of the pain is done, but we still have 2 months to go where we could have that bottoming structure filling out this $1 to $1.50 territory. Be very healthy for XRP, but in the immediate short term, of course, it's going to feel painful. Of course. Just remember that XRP was one of the first to bottom in the last bear market alongside Ethereum. So that's a very positive thing. And I think if we were to get any rotational effect, it would bode very well for Bitcoin. And then, of course, naturally lead over into the XRP, ETH, SOL plays. All right, we are looking at Zilliqa. Interesting. I haven't looked at Zill in a long time. At least I can't remember. Whoa, okay. So Zill broke the floor. Let me show you some horizontal trading ranges. In the last alt season, I sold my Zill on this day. It was so lucky. I literally woke up to a Binance limit order sold. It just spiked up some crazy amount, 45% in a single week, but that one day it hit the price target that I had set. Sorry, I just coughed. But yeah. So I'm not sure even where I'm at if I have any Zill. But that was a big limit order that got executed. I'm sure there's the circulating screenshot somewhere in our Discord, but that was a long fucking time ago. Crazy to see Zill all the way back near the C19 crash. But that was pretty crazy because from that recovery, we could see some amazing stuff for Zill. Not saying that's going to happen again. I haven't kept up with Zilliqa. I'm not sure what's going on in their little world, but this chart does not look good. The fact that we're getting back to some of like the lowest, most depressing levels though is not bad. Just must have been something recently that's drawn everyone's attention, but it's just traded right back and gone even lower. Isn't something like this what just happened with WorldCoin? Something happened with WorldCoin where it popped up, like a lot of people FOMO'd in, and then on the recent correction, it's now even lower than it was before that. So this type of shit's really dangerous, guys. I think like getting into altcoins on these moves just because we see like one crazy day or you hear some crazy new thing that's come, some update or something, it's almost all just kind of been bullshit. You know, so I'd be careful on that. I'm not sure if that's the case for Zill, but when I see a move like that in Zill in a project like this, it's where I go, oh yeah, of course. It was just one event, one thing, and it's a pump and dump. And now it's right back to where it was. So Yeah, just be careful. But in the grand scheme of things, this is very over sold as well. This is not even very cheap. This is extremely cheap. But the problem is can this go to zero? Sure. Why not? How did it get all the way down here? Because no one fucking cares. That's why. So Bitcoin is like trading somewhere like up here, while this thing is trading back at the C19 crash lows. Bitcoin was like $4,000 here, and Bitcoin's $70,000 today. So yeah, this is problematic when you have the 2022 bear market and the thing is down 70% from the bear market. It's still in a bear market. It's just in forever downtrend. So be cautious with these types of plays. Any moves that happen along the way are either during a time where Bitcoin's dominance is dropping supremely or some random isolated event, which could lead to the pump and dump, which we just saw. So all in all, though, we could be experiencing a macro spring. I just think we're beyond that at this point with Zilliqa. This would be like a macro selling climax. And then it's like, well, where does it go from here? You know? I mean, yeah. So be careful with stuff like this. It's fun. It's speculative. I had my fun with it back in the day, but I've even made mistakes where I invested in projects that had charts like this, that looked like this in the recent cycle. And it's not that I regret it now. It's just like I understand why to stay away from it, or to be like, treat it more like a trade. Because on this pop up here, I mean, yeah, even that is not that great. Like 200%. Yeah. So, okay. So there's just like, I would stay away from stuff like this generally, is what I can kind of seal the deal on this with. All right. DAG. Ooh, okay, so DAG, this is looking like a spring. What do I mean by that? We have a buying climax, we have a selling climax, we have an automatic rally. This is kind of like a weird false move because we came back up to a double top. So I think this is a spring and a completion of a macro M pattern that has played out. And also major backtest into the golden pocket of the last cycle. And if you look at the fib, we hit this 1618 territory. It might not be clean perfect because this was 2018, kind of random. That might be the start of the chart. I'm not sure. But yeah, this is very interesting how we've dug this deep. Actually quite similar to Zilliqa in the way that we're not looking amazing, but let me see where the C19 crash was here. So a little bit better, but not much. It looks a little bit more promising when you have like this bear market in 2019 and this crazy recovery move compared to the ZIL chart. It was just down, down, down. I would say stay away from this too. This doesn't look nice. Same feeling about Zilliqa. When I'm looking at things that look like this, it's like don't bother. Because they could pop up, sure. Like it could do this. It could pop up like this. But then even more down. This is a lot of losses. Because here in the initial bear market, oh my God. Wait, yo, guys. ETH and XRP and Doge bottomed here. Bitcoin bottomed here. DAG is just still going. It's 4 years. 4 years and some change. 4 years and 200 days. And it's just continuing down in its bear market. So yeah, be careful with this. The best case scenario would be maybe a buyback to 4 cents. After 4 cents, sure, you have kind of like the 6 to 9, but even 6 to 8 cents is like very big you would need all alts to kind of be moving up in synchronicity, which was the case over here and the case over here anyways. Having a repeat of this whole move, you need like a real deal alt season, and I'm not even sure this will be relevant enough to experience that. As opposed to everything back here was just lucky. Like it was all just luck because a lot of projects did this move. Let's look at Alchemy Pay. Okay, so Alchemy Pay is now backtesting the selling climax of the last bear market. So you have your buying climax, selling climax, automatic rally technically, and then kind of like this parallel channel vibe. But then we've broke down from it. So now that we broke down from it, we have a macro double bottom, right? This was a crazy move. So I have no idea what was going on, particularly here, because this was into August 2021. Like alt season happened into April, May of 2021. So this was an isolated move, like an absolutely wild. Imagine. Holy fuck, dude. How crazy is that? Yo. That is 12,000. That is 13,000% in 12 days. Fuck. Absolutely crazy. That is like what the we've had a couple of plays this cycle do that. But yeah, that is crazy. That is fucking crazy. But now, yeah, it's all the way back at the bottom. So one thing I would keep in mind for any recovery here at this point is this area seems to be of interest, maybe a rejection off the outside. What would that move be from where we are? But keep in mind, we're at support. So if this support doesn't hold, you're talking about a drop down to here. Let me draw another line to show you why. So this shit needs to hold. And filling this out could be arduous to the downside too, just like from launch all the way down to that level. But these 200 to 400% moves happen in crypto, like in the midst of things. Like here you have a 500%, here you have a 280%, here you have a 300%. So you had a 500%, 300%. That could happen at any time. With the smallest drop in Bitcoin dominance, you could literally have a 300 to 500% move in any shitcoin. No offense, I'm not calling Alchemy Pay like necessarily a shitcoin. I know people get offended by that stuff, but I'm just saying like that's crypto. You can have a 200 to 500% move in just 2 months because of Bitcoin dominance dropping. So the idea is, does Bitcoin dominance have one of those little rotations this year? It's in the cards, the fact that we're moving out of a lunar cycle. So that'll be great, of course, if that were to happen. And it's definitely possible. It happened in 2019. Ooh, okay. Kronos. I do believe I saw something recently that is it the CEO of Kronos acquired AI.com? It's a crazy domain. That is $77 million, I think they bought it for. The AI.com. So it's like, why would they invest in that? Why would he invest in that? What would be the thing? And you know, crypto.com is like big with the UFC, and I think they even have their own stadium in LA. I forgot. Maybe they do. I might be lying. I might be confused. But like they've been making big investments, and they've definitely been paying a lot for advertising. And then the acquisition of this AI.com thing is not like, I don't know, it's making me kind of think like, okay, is something coming for Kronos? Or is this just part of like a restructuring? What's going to come? What's going to happen? You guys let me know your thoughts. If you made it all the way to the end of this red pill and you're hearing this. But now this broadening pattern that we're getting, this kind of megaphone deal, looks like the Jesse Livermore pattern. And that would mean that if we can get a move back up to the prior resistance, you're looking at about 400%. And this is clean, man. This is clean. Is that move possible this year? I mean, that would be incredible. You know, you're talking 400%. Well, it happened in 24, happened again in 24, happened again in 2025. And even this move right here was like almost 200%. So it started the move off the bear market low. Whoa, okay, so this did drop for quite an extended period of time. Gave up 95%. Very typical. Even Solana did that. And now it's just been holding structure, but this is getting flat. So it's getting very flat around, like, we'll call it 7 cents, which is funny because Chronos is tied to Saturn, and Saturn has Saturnalia. It has the Shemitah years and paying honor to Saturn. That's your 7-year cycle. So the fact that we have this 7 cent code isn't weird to me. And that's been a major support level since the beginning of 2024. That would be after the Jubilee year. So the Jubilee is 7 cycles of 7 years is 49 years. And on your 50th year, you practice Jubilee. We've gotten out of Jubilee as of this moment right here. We had the October 7th event, Israel, Palestine, and then Chronos starts holding 7 cents for the 7-year code, 7 times 7. Interesting. Just a quick decode, but it's interesting. Also, remember, Satoshi is 50 years old, and that will be over on April 5th of this year. So that will now officially be 51, and we'll be moving out of that. And funny enough, when we moved out of the Jubilee, we saw what happened with precious metals. This right here, let me show you. Oh, I'm looking at the 2-month candles. Let me show you real quick while I have this on my mind. Oh, I didn't even think of this. This is the end of the Jubilee right there. We sunk down. We had the October 7th event, and then from there, that was the lowest gold has been. It just went up. Imagine we get through Satoshi's Jubilee. Holy shit. Okay, I have to talk about that. My year of the horse decoded. That's wild. I'm going to wrap this up, though. It's a 2-hour podcast. I did not anticipate this. We had a lot that we covered here. One of the longest podcasts I've done. Hope you guys appreciated it. Lots of stuff happening. We were talking about the Super Bowl in this one. We were talking about rotation between the silver and gold play and how that will take some time. We're talking about the bottoming structure for Bitcoin. I'll try to get this out while this superb owl is still going on. But for now, I appreciate and I'm grateful for every single one of you. We will have a midweek update coming for sure, following this up, maybe even as soon as tomorrow. But in the meantime, appreciate every single one of you. Wishing you all a beautiful rest of your day in the Matrix. Much love.